Isn't that 5?
I'll go 5-1. 5. I've got Killian, 4 Cody, 3 Hobie, 2 Alvin, 1 Atkins.
Okay.
My top 3 is a little bit different. They're all a little bit different, actually.
I'm writing my list down at this time. I didn't know we had
go
homework.
last.
There's homework.
All right, 5-1, and it's super debatable.
Yeah.
5 Cody, 4 Killian, 3 Ryan, 2 John, 1 Hobie. And I'm not even confident on that.
We overlap a little bit more.
We have the same 5, Jack and I.
Yeah. I think we're probably going to have all the same 5.
I had Hunter in my 5 instead of Cody. And I think it's just the multiple disciplines and just like the longevity of it, I guess. And just we're seeing him.
Cody had 8 years that he was around. That's longevity.
That is long. That is longevity.
3 world titles.
Yeah.
He has 3 world titles?
If you count the Ultra.
Yeah, because he did 2 laps for Bracken's race.
I still don't even understand what happened that year. So I'm not exactly sure.
Cliff notes, the Beast and the Ultra World Championships started at the same time. The Ultra did 2 laps of it, but you could double dip podiums.
So did he win the Beast?
He beat Hobie by like 6 minutes in the Beast and then continued on and won the Ultra.
But everyone did 2 laps. It was like everyone just did it.
But you raced the first one and then you hung on the second.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to. So Cody won the World Championships in that year. What year did you say that was?
2012, and then again in 2017.
The long year. It was like 17 and a half miles.
Yeah, it was the double
because that was the year that
double like 8 carries.
Hobie kind of fell apart in West Virginia, and he got 7th at Worlds in 17.
He had tooth surgery or some root canal, and he couldn't train or something.
Exactly.
Cody's interesting because he's the last one on my list, yet he's the single scariest racer on there to me. I think if everyone has their absolute best day, all on the same day, I think Cody wins more than he loses against those other 5. However, overall, I have him as the 5th rank because he had more bad days than anyone else, other than maybe Killian towards the end.
And that's the hardest part with me for Killian. It's like he's kind of been humanized a little bit. Granted, he's had different circumstances like over the past couple of years for training, but everybody has excuses for training. But the fact that Cody never really had like bad days, that was kind of the difference maker for me. But then Killian has such versatility with World's Toughest Mudder and a Stadium Series title and like just that huge range, never missing a podium in National Series for like 3 years in a row. It's like, that's just impressive as the field was getting deeper.
Yeah. I mean, these are good points.
Yeah, let's hear your list before we give away too much for everybody else to consider.
So I mean, it's very similar. I had Hunter 5, Killian 4, Alvin 3, Atkins, Hobie.
I think the only knock on Hunter is that he doesn't have like the statement OCR win.
Yeah.
I would say that toughest Mudder. Yeah. The
Asheville
US
was
National. Great. Yeah. The USA OCR. And then that toughest Mudder, 10-mile champion or tougher Mudder when he ran away from Batres, Hobie, all the fast guys in that 10-mile course on a super flat fast course. That was so impressive.
He won OCR North American Champs its inaugural year against a Killian Woods, Batres,
DeWint.
But he won the 15K and the 3K that year.
I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one
on top 5
without a World Spartan title or OCR Worlds title.
Yes. So when we ranked out those pieces, he doesn't have those, and which Cody does, which should jump him. I guess
he replaces it with every hybrid title there.
With every hybrid title, and just kind of him and Hobie, I look at as kind of like these ambassadors for the sport. Like those two probably have like how, the debate about how valuable are the athletes to bringing in more revenue for the company and exposing it to the masses. I think Hobie and Hunter are those two. I think in terms of what they've done for the sport as from an exposure standpoint. Yeah. Now that might be more of a subjective manner to put them in my top 5 and have Hobie number 1 for sure. But that's just kind of when I was looking at it, what shook out to me. And I didn't know that weird double race thing. So
yeah. Kirk, who's your top 5?
5 Killian, 4 Cody, 3 John, 2 Atkins, 1 Hobie. Yeah.
So I'm the only non-Hobie guy, and I could easily be convinced of that, honestly. Like,
he goes right to the top spot without even hesitation. It's like, is Michael Jordan the best player of all time? Maybe not, but he's always going to be my best player of all time for his overall impact on the sport during his time, for example. I don't know. Hobie is my Michael.
He and Cody did something unique in that they both beat everyone in their prime as aging athletes. And for anyone who wants to debate what era is what, we know this is the best era. We know that. But we know the best from the old era at 39 and 40 beat the 28 to 32 crowd of this era. And that to me is the defining fact. We can't, like, Atkins' resume is almost unassailable. John Alvin might just be the best OCR racer of all time, and it might not be close. But Hobie spanked these guys in their prime at 39, and I can't overlook that. At his slowest, because I got to race him at his fastest, and I know what he could have done to these boys then. And so I can't overlook the fact that they had the chance to knock off the old lion and they couldn't do it.
You know what? I've had this debate on other podcasts before, and I had Atkins and Alvin as my top two, and Hobie fell up. But the more I look at it, I keep leaning towards it, even though he's been, he hasn't raced for a few years. He won 78% of the races that he ever did.
Like, who are you talking about, Hobie?
Hobie. He podiumed 50 of the 55 career races that he did, and he had the longest unbeaten streak, like not only winning. He had 16 races in a row over 13 months that he ended up winning, and he's a 3-time world champ. It's a ridiculous resume. I'm almost leaning towards changing my mind the more I think about it.
I feel like we should go, like, if you wanted to I think you could argue Hobie, Atkins, or John, hands down, could be put in the number one spot. I think we should go around and argue, like, even if it's not our number one, like, why would John be number one? Why would Atkins be number one? I think you could make a convincible case for all three without question. What do you guys think? You really could.
Let's go. Let's hear why should Atkins be number one?
Are we doing Alvin first or Atkins?
Look at Atkins' range of abilities. He's a 24 Ultra World champ, second at TMX when he puts his hat in the ring, 5-time second place at Spartan World Champs, and a winner. Like, his range is better than anybody else on this list, without question. You cannot combat that.
If you did a stat of average finish position at Spartan World Championships, he's so much better than everyone else.
It's true.
Yeah.
He's actually, he was before Abu Dhabi, he was behind Alvin for number one. So now,
because he had one fourth place finish in there or something.
Yeah. But Alvin did too. But yeah, now he's behind.
If greatness is consistency over time, he's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I asked him back I've said this before, but I asked him, I think in 2016, what would be, if you could just create your course for your distance, what is your best OCR distance? He said, probably 50K. No, maybe 50 mile. So we all keep saying, like, they just keep making series for Atkins. And I've said it. They just, is it really exciting to see Ryan prove again that he's the best in the mountains? But in his eyes, he's racing down. That's a little bit depressing. And he wins some 3K and he wins a bunch of sprints. So if he is arguably the best all time and we haven't yet done a race at his preferred distance, maybe he's just like been handicapped his whole career.
Jack, an interesting stat, not to put more work on your plate, would be to just take because we all basically had the same 5 other than Hunter being thrown in the mix by Rich. Taking the head-to-head stats of each of these athletes against each other, and then having like maybe you already have this, having like an objective statistical winner, like who is statistically, percentage-wise, head-to-head against all of these the best of all time. Like, we probably could just put it on paper.
So I remember this. If you took Battle Frog, Warrior Dash World Championship, all Spartans, all Tough Mudder, any OCR related event, I think that it was 8-8 head-to-head Hobie versus Atkins, and Atkins had one more win head-to-head against Alvin, and now I think it's 2 because of Abu Dhabi. So I think that he has the best head-to-head record against everybody, and that was my justification before. But I don't want to misquote it without the numbers. That's just my gut remembering what it was before.
if you throw in like the Killian and the Cody, like, and you put them all like a 1-to-1, head-to-head battles, and then mix in all the percentages and wins, I'd just be very curious. Like, would Hobie easily rise to the top, and it'd be a no-brainer if you put everybody against everybody? I don't know. I'd be very curious. It's an interesting
it depends on if you're looking at Spartan only or everything. That's gonna affect things.
My final argument for Atkins is the greatest of all time is that Hobie and Killian, two of their greatest strengths, were showing up when it counted, perfectly fit and matched for the course.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't have created a better year or race than Tahoe for Killian's first and second championships. Hobie had a freak, and I put Killian in there, probably the two biggest freaks, and then Hunter would be third in terms of going all in on getting perfectly ready for one event and executing. They can just show up and change their fitness during a training camp.
Did you name Killian in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Killian, Hobie, and Hunter have a unique ability to go all in and tangibly get better when they work on a certain course. And Atkins is the antithesis to that.
Mm-hmm.
He just races on whatever he's done. He's taken second place off like 5 different preceding buildups. One of which was just going and getting like dengue fever for 4 months in the Amazon. Like, it is ridiculous, the ability for him to perform off of no specific preparation. And Hunter said it for years. He said, every year I tell that guy, just go all in and win a championship and shut everyone up. And Atkins like, that's not how I want to live. So if he can do this off B tier planning, he's the best ever.
Well, the results need to back it up, right? Like, he needs to have put that time in, like Killian or even Cody that one year did that, where he didn't race too much, showed up and crushed everybody at Tahoe. It's like the potential is probably like, you could probably put that head and shoulders above everybody else. Like, if he did specifically prepare, maybe he has 4 world titles at this point, but he doesn't. He has
anybody who can do the eco challenge and not sleep for 2 weeks straight and then show up and take second place, like, done deal.
Crazy. I will throw out a couple more stats that I found. These were as of 2020 or 2021, sometime during that. So it's not including this year. But since you guys all had Hobie as your number one and Atkins I had, if you look at percent of winner in races, Atkins was 98.6%. Hobie was 98.7%, virtually identical. If you look at major races on the podium, Atkins was 76.5 and Hobie was 76.9. If you look at major race percent of winner, not just local ones, Atkins was 98.2, Hobie was behind in 97.9. So they're both right there. Like, it's basically insignificant how close they are, or the difference between the two of them. So Atkins doing it in a slightly better era, Hobie doing it at the end of his career when he wasn't at his peak. It's like, you can weigh both of those. But it's so easy to make an argument for Atkins.
So we've listed about 6 athletes that would be in our top tier. We could say 5 if we want to drop Hunter down, since I was the only one who kind of mentioned that. So he's kind of in that middle spot. What do we think about from like 6 to 10 then? What's this second tier looking like for us? This is where it gets a little bit tricky, right? Because now it's not as shiny, as glamorous, as easy to kind of point to. So now it's like, all right, now we really got to take in consideration with these things that we talked about.
Let's list 6 only. I want to know who everyone has. Specifically, like, who is the closest to that argument?
It's no question who it is.
Is it Hunter for everybody?
There's one, him or Vijay. I mean, Vijay's got to be sitting there feeling horribly disrespected right now, and he's a year away from being in the top 5 without question, right? He just needs to finish out the season, and I'm going to plug him in somewhere. He's going to earn it.
I agree.
It's just what it is. So yeah, those 2 for sure.
Well, I had Cody 6. So I mean, that's just flip-flopping the 5 and 6 there.
My next 2 are tied, as are my next 2 after that, and that's Hunter and Vijay.
Yeah.
Vijay's only downfall is that they're testing his worst skill for terms of Spartan World Championships and OCR World Championships. It's just mountain long. That's it. If someone decided, what's the coolest thing ever? It's just being faster and smoother and better on obstacles than everyone, and we're just going to test 30 or 40 or even 60 minutes or less. Suddenly he's in the argument for greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the different test, and he's young.
Right. He's still ascending. Like, he's still like, his greatest accomplishment happened last year. Right. And
he just won his first beast, and it was a massive win.
Mm-hmm. World Championships with a super this year. Like, he won a world championship at the same course that OCR World is going to be at again. Like, he's going to pad his resume this year, and easy argument for top 5 once the year's done, assuming he takes care of business, like you guys have been saying recently. And I don't know. I feel 3 years from now, he could be contending for number 1 with a few more accomplishments.
I really wish we could just cement our 5 right now and put them on the mountain, so that worst case scenario, you can only add people to it, because someone's going to get booted off there, and eventually it's going to be Cody and Killian. And neither of those guys deserve to ever. Killian might be the most underrated OCR athlete ever.
Yeah.
Like, we reward Atkins going up, Killian's gone up, and Killian's gone down. So one of those two, if not both, will eventually be booted out off Mount Rushmore, and that is so disrespectful.
The founding fathers got to stay.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this is the pioneers of the sport. It's not like old Hoss Radbourne in baseball in the 1880s. So he wouldn't compare to the greatest currently playing the game. But if you look at OCR in the early years, those guys would have held their own against anybody in today's modern era. So you're right, you can't get rid of their legacy, but they're going to disappear. And people who start following the sport 5 years from now and never heard of it right now, they're going to look back and be like, oh, well, I didn't even think they were that good, because they're not like mentioned in the top 5 anymore. But I totally agree. You have to kind of like cement them in there just to keep their legacy alive, in the future.
You can't cement someone as the greatest of all time.
No.
Other people.
Mount Rushmore has not been modified since it was built, fellas.
That's right.
There have been better presidents since. That's still standing.
Yeah.
I think it's mandatory viewing for people to go back and watch the old NBC coverage of Hobie and Cody just once a year.
Slaughtering.
This morning, I watched
You're
Breckenridge.
saying that so they see you in there.
Yeah.
No, you won't see me. I'm talking Breckenridge, and what was that? 2015, Jack? 2017?
That was when they missed a spear and a sprint and still came back, right?
No, I'm talking about the Beast, when Cody put like 4 or 6 minutes on all of these guys.
15 was a sprint, 16 was the Beast.
2016 Breckenridge, and then 2016 Tahoe. I'm not in either of those videos, Kirk, and those are mandatory viewing to see how fast those guys are. Even watching Hobie, I watched this morning just to refresh myself on who do I really think is better for the greatest of all time. I've never seen someone run on course the way Hobie and Cody run when they're rolling. None of the guys still touch it. It's ridiculous. So as long as we still have those videos out there showing them racing, Alvin and Atkins, for at least the next 10 years, there's an ABC comparison. People can say, I didn't see them, but I saw Atkins and Alvin. And here I see videos of them spanking those two. So at least we can still appreciate their greatness. And I know I'm starting to sound like that crabby old head. He's like, my day. Well, it still holds up though. Like, I don't want to be Kendrick Perkins, but it still holds up. If you reset everyone to 30 years old, are we really going to bet against Hobie?
Well, this is like watching the Pistons beat the Bulls and then stop watching basketball and be like, Michael Jordan can't be above Isaiah Thomas on the all-time list. Their teams weren't even, and then like the next 8 years, next 6 years, 10 years or whatever it was, like, oh, it's clearly changed. So this is what's going to happen with the VJs and how things go with the Rylands and the Hawks. Like, these people are going to come up and they're going to have to lay their own work in and eventually surpass some of these people that are in our top 4.
Well, Vijay and Ryland are going to have to beat Atkins and Alvin to ever say they were better than Hobie. Because Hobie established himself in Atkins's prime, Hobie was still considered better. He won almost the entire national series and a world title on back-to-back years in Atkins' 29 and 30 years, or 28 and 29-year-old years. So since he established that, those two have to do that to Atkins in order to ever say that they could have the chance of being the GOAT. They have to beat both of the GOAT's accomplishments.
I'm not sure I follow the logic, but I kind of get what you're saying. But at the same time, it's like when Vijay is 33, like he might be at his pinnacle then, and then Atkins will be in his 40s, and he won't have that ability to knock him off. Like, it just seems like a timing thing, right?
So we agree, Hunter and Vijay are the next two up.
Yep.
Yes,
and this is where it gets interesting.
Well, I see, and I think you guys are going to argue with me on this, but I think 8 is a lock. which I know 8, 9, and 10, we're going to start splitting hairs. In my opinion, 8's a lock. And I want to know if any of you think that about your number 8.
Ryan Woods.
Ryan Woods, thank you.
And I have him tied with Kempson.
He had the most dominant 18 Spartan U.S. National Series of probably any Spartan U.S. National Series other than Hobie Call. What was it, the year prior, maybe?
And Yatsko did the same thing back in the day as well.
Mm-hmm. And with Ryan Woods, like his consistency in Savage Race until this year has been unparalleled, really, until maybe what Kempson has recently done. And he's been a contender in every single Spartan Race World Championship race until he messes it up. Somehow.
We have little E next to the thing. You can say whatever you want.
Sorry about that, folks. I feel like I can swear on the running public, but not.
You can swear on this one. It should be
so I think Ryan Woods, lock it in.
I actually was very torn between Woods and the other guy that I essentially have him tied with. The only reason why I'm giving it to Woods is because he's actually been able to show up to Tahoe. The unfortunate thing for Sergey Perelgin, who got second in Abu Dhabi, never was able to race against the best people because he's from Russia and just wasn't able to get a visa. He wanted to face the best people. He won European championships one year and wanted to come over World Championship. He couldn't do it. And then OCR World's second place, third place. He has several of those, got second in Abu Dhabi. Like, he has a heck of a resume. And it's just a shame that he's never had that opportunity to face most of the best in the US or travel to North America, essentially outside of Canada. So that's his only downfall, and it's not really his fault. But I think body of work, you have to give it to Woods because of what he's accomplished throughout his career.
Bracken, when you said, watch old Cody and watch old Hobie and the way they ran and dominated, and then you go back and watch Ryan Woods in the 2018 season in San Jose, in Chicago, the way he led the field up the Tahoe climb, I would say, like, he's even more than like any performance I can think of John Albin in like a Spartan race. Like, Ryan Woods has gone and handed it to the best and made us all look like idiots. Yeah. At time. You could argue to bump him up if he didn't have like a COVID year or two and he was able to continue that for longer, he'd be even further up the list. His downfall is he hasn't spread his wings into stadiums or hybrid or any other arena to just put some more frosting on his cake.
Didn't.
True. Wasn't available to him either then.
I can't argue with your running comment. He's the only one that can run like Cody Moat on trails. But I think that he's hamstrung by a few things. One, historically, and Ryan's my buddy. I'm saying this as a black and white analysis of his career, and he's not going to like two of these three things. He'll agree with my first one. Ryan's not super athletic. So you're not going to see him do hybrid racing. You're not going to see him do stadiums. You're not going to see him try other things because that's not in his wheelhouse. So that's one thing where Kempson and Sergey both can do and he can't. So his running trumps theirs. Their athleticism trumps him. The next two he's not going to like, but I think it needs to be said for the health of the sport. The first is he's the only guy with a positive drug test. And I do not care. I do not care what the circumstance is. You can't just wipe that away. Even if everything he said is right, which you're going to have people argue that it's nonsense. It doesn't matter what your take is. He has that stain on the pinnacle of his career. That was coming off of his second best year, and it happened right before his best year. So you have to have an asterisk there just by the laws of sport. And then the third thing is, when you look at Sergey and Kempson, and you look at Woods, there are two distinct camps. There is finding a way to lose races and finding a way to win races. Now, Woods has won as many races as any of them, but the big races, he finds a way off the top, and they find a way to claw their way onto the top. And so while I think his best day beats their best day 100 times out of 100, all those balance out, and I have them as a dead heat tie for that 8th position. So that's my long-winded argument for that.
Great arguments. Fantastic.
Those are great points. And like, what would you say if we're matching up the three of those? Because I actually had Woods below Kempson and Sergey, probably because of the things that Bracken had mentioned. But what would you say would be Woods's crowning achievement? Was it that North American Championship win? Is it the series win?
He did that win like every race for a year and a half. He spanked people like we haven't seen people spank. He was true. You talk about those on everyone's best day. Who are you worried about? You know you can't touch Woods on his best day. You know that. Unless you're one of the top 5 guys we talked about, you don't even have a prayer. And he did that for a year.
But not at Spartan World Championships.
Well, he started to.
Not at OCR World Championships.
And an issue always happened, whether it was the spear or what. Usually it was the spear.
That's what I'm saying. Like, where's his result? If it was on paper and not necessarily like being there and like knowing what greatness Woods has.
You didn't know he did burpees in a puddle that got him cold. Like, if you don't know the backstory.
He got penalized for it, and like, you know, the trust thing and all these things that are just like haunting Woods. His best accomplishment, is it better than an OCR World Championship, even though that one might have an asterisk? Like, where like the best ones, right?
I don't think there's a title that's better, but people talk about the difference between a 320-foot home run and a 520-foot home run. They count the same, but in the annals of history, they're not the same. That's Woods. Like, when he wins and he puts it together, it's a 500-foot home run. I talk about Cody's Breckenridge win. Woods had like 4 of those in a year.
Is he Charles Barkley?
I don't know in which way you mean.
Like, there's no big title, so instantly he's dropped below.
He got an MVP, which is
MVP.
Like
He might be the best
title.
player. He may have been the best player in the league 2 or 3 times. If Jordan wasn't there, he was like the second best player, right? But
well, of those 3, Kempson, Sergey, Woods, I say Woods the best. Sergey has the most titles to his name. Kempson's the scariest athlete to me, but Woods is not touchable on his best day.
So just to kind of close this up, you guys all have Kempson in your top 10, right? I don't.
Okay. Who else? Who are we missing?
I think Ryan Kentz had a better career. Albert
I have
Soleil.
Kentz in mine.
Kentz is my next guy.
Mine too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
are the big marquee performances?
Sorry, you cut out real quick. You said Kempson or Kent?
Ryan Kent is after those 3 guys tied, Kent is my next up.
So that,
and if we
up
count
10.
hybrid higher, he jumps them.
I agree. Yeah.
He might be my 6, 7. He's my 8.
Yeah.
Hybrid counts.
Mm-hmm. But then that pushes Hunter potentially into the top 5. So that's the tricky part. But
right.
I think Kent alone with OCR, he has still accomplished a crap ton of stuff that puts him in the conversation regardless. But I also think like Albert Soleil, Angel, a couple guys in Europe like Thomas Buell, Thibaut Debouché, that like people don't know about their accomplishments, but if you look at the European scene and how dangerous they've been and how well they've done at OCR Worlds when they've shown up,
that's my tier 3.
They've had better careers than Kempson, to be objective.
Strength of schedule is what I count there. You're right. You're not wrong.
Yeah. I'd even say Matt Murphy's had a better career than Kempson, to be honest.
False.
And I know that you don't believe that.
No.
And I'm staying with a guy from Australia staying with me right now. And just some of the stories about Matt Murphy's fitness is just ridiculous. And he's got the results.
That doesn't count. Stories about fitness doesn't count.
No, I know, but like Matt Murphy, another argument I was considering putting him around 10. He ran like 28 or 30 races, and only one time he missed second place or first place.
Like, how many were on an island?
I mean, isn't North America an island, technically? He got second place there once at Spartan Worlds.
Right, but like, we can't count everything the same.
No, he's not in my top 10. I don't want to get that distracted. I'm just saying people who could be justified ahead of Peter Ziska. Like, you could put some people ahead of Kempson.
As soon as you start saying could have, I think that's all tier 3.
Yeah, and he's lumped in that. Kempson's somewhere in like 11 to 15 for me.
Okay. I think he has the same amount of firsts and seconds at big national series events as Ryan Kent. And if they're not identical, they're one different on both of those. They've had their statement super wins, and they don't have the Kent doesn't have the OCR Worlds or the Savage because he hasn't done it. His is replaced with hybrid, and Kempson has stadium success as well. So I think on paper, as just a Spartan athlete, they're equivalent.
Yeah, because Kempson has the 3rd place at the North American Championships in 19 and the 3rd place in Alabama. So he had 3 podium finishes in that year alone, which was his breakout year. And then he was on the podium in Jacksonville in 2020. So he might have a little bit. How many podiums?
Kent has a West Virginia second place.
Seattle, West Virginia.
Mhm.
Couple
He
Seattle.
has a San Jose second place.
Yeah.
The way in Seattle when he did 30 burpees and still ran himself back into third
Yeah.
was one of probably his most impressive performance of all time,
Yeah.
believe it or not, even though it was a third place finish.
And Kent was like 6th at Tahoe within striking distance of Cody Moat. Like I'm talking 10, 15 seconds behind him for missing top 5 in a year where everybody showed up. Like he's had a hell of a career.
Yeah.
Okay.
He basically had Kempson's career just earlier in terms of their pinnacles.
Yeah. I think if Kent didn't want to go to hybrid and he stuck with Spartan, he still would have been, producing great results over the past couple of years. That's just his focus. He'd rather train hybrid.
Yeah, he almost ran as well as he and Hunter both almost ran Atkins's race in slow without doing any Spartan work.
Yeah.
We're to the point now where everyone has an argument that they're right or wrong, and you're going to have that from here on out. But I still think these guys are actually better than that tier 3.
Okay.
Where are you drawing the line for tier 3? Where's tier 2 starts after Cody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't this list ending at 10? Isn't this a top 10 list? So
I ended up with 17 just because I couldn't stop. 18.
Let's keep going. We got at least 20 more minutes.
Yeah. We got
the women to do.
No, we're not doing
that
that
next time.
Oh, good. Then
let's
get deep in the woods.
Let's keep going.
So after Kempson, Woods, Kentz, Siergay, I have a hard stop. And after that is tier 3. And that's where you have all the maybes. There's an argument for that you could be tier 2. But if we did this like how they do all pro rankings, where it's like first place votes, second place, third, you're going to get no first place votes for any of these guys. You're going to have a lot of third place in a few seconds. But no one's going to ever argue that they have a chance to be the greatest of all time. And if there's not one world title in years, and if there's not multiple somethings that are super impressive, to me, it's third tier. Now, Albert, I think, could be argued into tier 2. But for me, it's Albert, Isaiah, Heineck, Angel, Ziska.
This is your international tier.
I think we got to put Botras on the list. If you don't put Botras,
you're
forgetting about a lot of his past performances.
Well, Bracken, where are you here? Jack, where's Bracken in when we're talking about this tier?
You can't rank yourself.
I'd say he's probably around 20 to 25. Like if you look at all-time stat, I'd put him on the list. I don't know, maybe high teens. He's probably just after those names that he listed right there in terms of career accomplishments.
Yeah, had him in those names.
Yeah.
I have me 15 , but I don't get to vote for me.
You just said you couldn't rank yourself, and then you gave us
I can rank
ranking.
myself. I can't make the case for myself because that's too self-serving.
Yeah.
But my ranking is 15, and I will always value myself higher than the stats will value me.
I have you above guys who might have had more impressive performances like a Johnny or Matt Novakovic, but like career, you've had a better career than those like outstanding
longevity
moments.
For sure.
Mine doesn't matter because it's from an era that I can't compare my result. You can compare Hobie and Cody. I don't think you can compare my results to this era.
You can't compare eras. They're just different things. So
you can compare the best of the era.
Well, if you had some honest cracks at some races in the last 3 years, it'd be a different conversation, but that hasn't been available to you, unfortunately. Well, right. That's what I'm saying.
Those top 5 guys, I don't know.
What about that super short course? What
once
about
or
that
twice each?
That super short course that I went on a YouTube hole in Atlas Games or whatever it was.
Europa.
I'm the GOAT there.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's a championship.
That doesn't count.
What if we had to dive down the rabbit hole of, like, if we had to make this list in 5 years, knowing the trajectory of who we currently know, who do you think we would wedge their way into the top 10 if they stay with the sport?
Like on the projection?
Yeah, like if we had to change, this up, like who would make their way in potentially? Like who's the corral of guys?
I don't think anybody right now.
I would have said Veerman a year ago. I would have said Johnny 2 years ago. I would have said Rylan 9 months ago. Like we get excited about people, but then we've got to see body of work. I can't say for sure. Lars Arneson.
Oh, he did it. You gave one.
Gosh. I think Vijay's the only one. He can move up. No one else is coming in at the moment.
I think Rylan has a shot. I mean,
they all could.
Yeah, he already has a National Series podium, and he's barely running these races. Hawk the same way. I think those are the athletes. right now who are young.
I mean, it's like 5, 6, 8 for these finishes. Like very impressive in today's field, but is that better than Woods or Kent, who we were trying to figure out if they still should be in the top 10? Is that better than Kenson?
The tough thing is, like, then our minds are already made up. Then our Mount Rushmore might as well be 10 people and then just etch them in stone. And then that's it, right? Like, there's got to be some flex here.
Every guy I named can. Every single guy I named can.
What's the youngest guy between us four? How old is that?
Jack.
32.